Good morning, Fulham fans. Another victory in the bag. Not as easy as you might think. Middlesbrough are a very good side, and they proved that in that first half. We managed to get away with a win, eventually 3-1 in the end. But we were very concerned, and Borough were far the better team, especially in that first half. Amazingly, the first time we played Middlesbrough was in 1924, and we've actually only played Middlesbrough in the FA Cup just once, and this was the once. We played them in the League Cup back in 2016, where unbelievably names like, I don't know, Tom Kearney and Sessegnon would have been in the squad. So that was weird looking back to that. But overall, do you think we did finally deserve to win that match, Tom? Or do you think Middlesbrough should have perhaps come out with a draw?
I think, yeah, if it was the two teams that started the game, Middlesbrough not only were the better team, I would argue they actually had the better players on the pitch, it felt like. But then when we brought the big hitters on, there was a clear difference in technical ability. I thought the three of them all made a difference, Kearney, Jimenez and Wilson, which we'll go on to. But the players that started were all very raw talents. I mean, you look at the front three especially, and there is ability there, but it's incredibly raw. I mean, Kusiasari, 18-year-old, and it looks like he still doesn't really understand how to use his body in the best way. He's so tall, and so many times the ball just seemed to bounce off him, and he couldn't make it stick. Traore he is not having a great season, and there were times where he just held on to the ball far too long. I mean, there was one instance where Reed was open for a shot for a while, and he just held on to it for no good reason. He played it, and then Reed was forced to take this left-footed rush shot.
He wasn't best pleased, was
he? He said, just give it to me sooner. And for such a quick player, it is such a almost contrast that his issue is he just holds onto the ball too long sometimes, and he just doesn't seem to be in command of the ball. And then Kevin obviously gets his goal, but I think he's very raw as well. So you had that front three, and then I thought the midfield was poor as well, because for the first time this season it was Reed and Lukic. So if we say that Kearney and Berger, the other two midfielders, they're the ball playing midfielders, I think it's fair to say Reed and Lukic are the kind of hassling terrier midfielders. And together we were just getting outplayed by Middlesbrough's midfield. They were just better technically.
I mean, Reed and Lukic are like busy bees, covering the pitch and harrying people.
And it didn't work, did it?
But it really didn't work. And Middlesbrough were just bossed that first half. Their defence was completely untroubled by us. We didn't seem to be able to string many passes together. It seemed to break down whenever anything started. And we really looked toothless. And, we failed to build up anything and progress up the pitch.
Well, it looked like Morris and Hackney in their midfield were just better technically. And we just couldn't get the ball to Smith Rowe. Whereas you'd have either Berger or Kearney that could try and play those push passes towards him. Reed and Lukic just never seemed to be able to do that. And then when the ball did get to Smith Rowe, he wasn't making it stick. So it was actually quite a frustrating first half.
No, and Middlesbrough really enjoy. I mean, now that obviously we won the match, but at the time I really enjoyed watching Middlesbrough play. They looked such a solid, well-drilled, and also very creative team.
Well, their goal was actually brilliant.
It was a wonderful goal.
Because there was a back heel to Silvera. He takes on Sessegnon was back in left back covering Robinson. And we didn't think he had a fantastic game, especially in that first half. I just think they were really good to watch. And then Hayden Hackney, who we've been linked with, gets the goal in the 30th minute. Yeah. And it was a great, well-deserved goal.
And Silvera, what a wonderful assist.
Yeah.
What a
the whole
wonderful
goal
assist.
was really good. Sessegnon needs to do better.
Yeah,
and I think Cuenca goes down too early when he plays that pass, but it was still a good goal.
Yeah, so Sessegnon, again, we have to remember he's come back from injury. I think we've been bamboozled by the fact that he played so well against Chelsea when he came on. But he's just coming back from injury. He didn't have the greatest game that game. He made a couple of mistakes, which is completely allowed. and it really was quite grim at the end of the second half. I just thought that they're gonna win because they just dominated.
Well, there was no concept that we were the Premier League team. I mean, obviously their fans were doing the chants, Premier League, you're having a laugh, and it was kind of right. There was no evidence on that first half that we were the Premier League team, that we were in control, we were at home. There was no one in that team that was really saying, this is us, we belong in the Premier League, we are the better team, getting on the ball, because we didn't have really any technical ability on the ball. That's what it felt like.
No, you're absolutely spot on. And I mean, we kind of got a little bit more possession, I think, at the sort of 40th minute. And I remember Smith Rowe did a cross, but there was nobody there. Nobody could reach it. And Kusi Asari just seemed like he was on the back foot.
He had one header, didn't he, where I think Traore crossed it and he headed it, but it was straight at the keeper.
Well remembered, yeah. I mean, in the 42nd minute, Lukic had a shot saved off the line. Do you remember, by Ayling? It's nice to see Ayling still playing.
He actually had quite a solid game.
Yeah, he did. And then we did get a corner, but then Middlesbrough tended to break because the corner wouldn't go anywhere.
Well, I thought Whittaker looked quite dangerous throughout the game. And he nearly scored in the second half as well.
He did.
Probably
he should have
done.
scored. Yeah. So, yes, I wrote some expletives at the end of that first half. I won't say what, because I just thought it was just miserable from a Fulham perspective. Middlesbrough, again, would have been absolutely... I mean, those travelling fans, imagine... Thank goodness that they had a really, really fantastic first half, because they must have spent all day travelling down to Fulham.
And you got to think they're probably going to get promoted. If they play anything like they did in that first half, they'll beat most Championship teams. And I know Coventry are wobbling as well.
They are, and they recently beat Southampton 4-0. I think they've had a couple of not so great games, but they've got back on track.
And it's been a turbulent time for them with the manager situation. So, I think... Yeah. I would be surprised if they weren't in the Premier League next season. So we'll see them again. Obviously, I'd like us to get Hackney because he looks a real good player. But I think from his celebration, he kind of put his fingers in his ears and it was kind of shutting out the noise. So maybe he's going to stay, but I'm sure we'll see them next season.
Yeah. So then the second half, and then slightly worried that there were no changes. Lukic again looked, Lukic and Ree just... didn't seem like they fitted. We needed like you said, a ball player, and it just wasn't working. Smith Rowe also, his passes sort of broke down as well. Nothing that just seemed slightly, really off kilter.
I think Smith Rowe needs one of, if not all, of Iwobi, Berger or Kearney on the pitch to feed him the ball, because he operates best in those half spaces, and he needs to be given the ball, preferably with a short pass, in those final third areas, and Reed and Lukic just aren't equipped to do that. And I think he needs one of those three I mentioned that have that ability to do it. So essentially, we weren't getting the best out of him or anything out of him at all, because we didn't have the facilities to get him the ball where he needs it.
I mean, the one promising thing that when we did come back out, there was slightly more urgency. But then whenever we did get up to their final third, Borough would break. And Whittaker nearly scored. He beat Sessegnon. And don't forget, this young lad, Whittaker, he'd scored apparently 2 goals in the previous matches. He looks really, really good. And I think, again, we had a few chances. Lukic shot, Melandra's head was in the way. And finally, round about the sort of 55th minute, we've got our subs coming on. So we had Rowe and Kearney and Wilson came on, and things just seemed to settle down.
And you'd argue maybe, with the exception of Iwobi as well, they're the 3 best technical players in the club. And it kind of really showed when they came on.
Yeah.
And Wilson just is on the form of his life at the moment. He really was the catalyst.
And another stunning goal from Wilson. So round about the 57th minute, Wilson scores. It was from a cross by Kevin, but he had so much to do, didn't he?
Well, it bobbled away. A Middlesbrough player cleared it, and then one of our players was coming onto it, but then Wilson kind of said, leave it to me. He turned, and I do think it's poor defending from that target, where you can't let Wilson on his left foot in that position. And he did one again after where Wilson had another shot like that parried, and we nearly scored the rebound from Robinson. And I think he did clock, but it was kind of too late, where you can't leave a player with a left foot that good on that good a form.
Yeah.
And Wilson just had time to turn, put it on his left and just sweep it in the far post, which he's one of the best in the world at doing that. And the form he's on, he was never missing. And yeah, it's just amazing to see him like this. That's 3 goals in a week, 3 games in a row, all at Craven Cottage. And right now, he just looks so confident. And it's great to see a player playing like this.
His body language is just, never seen him like that. It's just so self-assured, quietly just brimming with confidence. And what was hilarious is just before he scored, I said, we can't leave everything for Wilson to do. And then he scored. And I thought, yep, we are leaving.
It's probably the one thing with the miss of Chukwueze and Iwobi is we are very over-reliant on him for creativity.
Yeah.
What I will say, and maybe from a really bad thing, Muniz getting injured, a good thing has happened where Raul and Wilson seem to really have a connection. And Wilson's making more central runs because Raul's dropping off more. And Wilson never would have been able to do that with Mitrovic or then Muniz, who would occupy that space. So it really feels like, because Raul's been forced to play every single game, that those two have built up a real understanding. Yeah. And then for Smith Rowe's goal as well, Raul and Kevin's goal, there was just like lovely interplay between Raul, Wilson, Kenny got involved. And it's just nice to see those players form connections, because that was one of the issues early in the season. We weren't seeing any connections in the team.
That's absolutely right. They were sort of playing as individuals. Again, there didn't seem to be any understanding between the players in that first half at all. And I think also Middlesbrough did have a couple of other chances. I think Tommy Conway had one. And then we've got the Smith Rowe scoring, which was begging him to do that, and it was a really well taken goal, and it again went like a rocket into the back of the net. Yeah.
To my earlier point, Wilson plays Kearney, and it's a lovely pass from Kearney, where he kind of opens up his body, but then plays a feint pass, and then it's just pure instincts from Wilson. Turns, he only needs to take 2 touches, so he turns with his first touch, and then it's just a lovely finish. So it was a brilliant technical goal. So
again, I'm thinking, right, we're relying on Wilson, who was one of our championship side players, Kearney, one of our championship side players. You know, these are amazing individuals, and we've got a manager who's bringing the best out of them, is actually getting Wilson, and with obviously Wilson's humility and the fact that he must be working so hard for this and it's paying dividends. What is going to happen when, I've got a horrible feeling the transfers aren't going to work out. What's going to happen when we don't get the people that we need in, that Silva realises, no, they're not going to fulfil what they promised me? I just don't understand why Fulham aren't really trying their absolute best to try and get the players that we actually need. What is going on?
I think there's obviously a disconnect there, because the owners will say, oh, well, we gave you your record signing, we gave you Kevin, but Silva's clearly, and that's why the contract talks are stalling as well, and that's why he had the kind of the turmoil over the summer, because he's clearly not being backed in the way that he feels he should. And we're at a point where, even though earlier on in the season we were looking over our shoulders, we're now looking ahead to Europe. That's an unbelievable position to be in, as well as the fact that we're in a cup quarter-final that was right at the death. So he's still achieving unbelievable things, Silva, with, you don't want to say the bare minimum, because as you say, we've got really good players still, but there are still gaping holes in that team. Kusiasari, we hope that he goes on to have an amazing career, but he's an 18-year-old who clearly isn't ready for this level yet. The midfield, we don't really have a real defensive midfielder. Sessegnon and Robinson, it feels like both of them are having to play compromise because we don't have another left-back or another defender who can really fill in that position. So we do have these holes in our team. And I agree with you. Why not kick on? That's always been the thing with Fulham. It's Silva gets us in these unbelievable positions, and either through his own stubbornness or through the lack of backing from the ownerships, we just don't seem to kick on.
I mean, they were looking at Arthur Atta from Udinese, but again, if you look at his stats, and to be honest, I'm pretty ignorant about him, but looking at his stats, his tackles are low, his blocks are low, his interceptions are low, so he's certainly not a defensive midfielder, which is from the stats. And maybe I am wrong. I probably am. It doesn't look like he's the fit that we need.
And also, it seems like classic car negotiations where it's like this Pepe striker, where we bid once, they go, no, we want more, and then that's it. We just never hear about it
exactly.
again.
There's just a blank, and I just really think they've got such a massive opportunity here. You've got players playing out their skin. And you got a manager that, he's got his issues, but my God, he's come up trumps recently with all of the injuries and the players that we haven't got enough. I mean, I don't know what else that we have to do if they want to kick on. And I know, God, we're asking a big ask. They've got to invest more money, but surely they can see that if they do that, that they will get it, so much back. Anyway, rant over. Let's get back then to the match then, where we just talked about how Smith Rowe scored, and then Kevin finally gets that goal, which is wonderful.
That's Jimenez and Wilson linking up again, where Wilson gives it to Jimenez, and then Jimenez makes space for Wilson. Wilson knows exactly what he's going to do before he gets it, and similar technique to the Palace goal, uses the outside of his foot, and this is the assist of the season so far for us. So Wilson could very much have the goal of the season and the assist of the season, although Harrison Reed will probably argue with that. And it's just brilliant, and we are very happy for Kevin, because we thought he'd scored earlier in the game where he did that almost trademark cut in on his right and he tries to whip it in but just missed. So thank God that he's finally got that goal, and it was a scrappy goal as well, which is good. So, you don't have to score a worldie every single time. So he just got at the back post and he seemed pretty relieved.
Oh, it was just utter relief. And I kind of felt sorry for him that they must have had so much pent up anxiety to look that relieved when he scored. What a great thing for him. Also, don't forget, Middlesbrough had a couple of other chances. So Whittaker had a great shot that literally missed by about half a centimetre. So they were still really trying. And then he was taken off. Hackney was too. And so they brought on 3 new subs. So I thought, God, good for you that you're trying different things. And they look like a really exciting, solid team. So, I'm sure from the looks of it, not that I know anything about it, that they might come up and play in the Prem next season. So all in all then, folks, that means that we're into the 4th round of the FA Cup. What could possibly go wrong? So we're still awaiting the draw, aren't we? We've got some more FA Cup games today. So we await or something where, they're suitably scary and, it ends. But I have to say, my brother said he's got a feeling about the FA Cup.
We'll see.
So he was at the FA Cup final in 75, and my dad said, I've got a feeling we'd win this, and obviously then we didn't. So hopefully he might be right. Right then, Fulham fans, so thank you so much for listening, and have a great week where we can just relax a little bit before we have the matter of Leeds. That's not going to be easy. So another exciting instalment for Fulham fans going to Leeds. Right, take care then, folks.